In the dusty heart of Umuofia village, where the sun scorches dreams and gossip fuels the evening breeze, one man stood alone against the laughter of his people. They called him Old Man Kelechi, the fool who chased shadows on barren land. But what they didn't know was that the soil they mocked held secrets that would bury their pride and crown him king. Stay glued, because this is the story of how the Scorn became the sovereign. The sun hung low over Umuofia, painting the sky with hues of orange and gold. The village square buzzed with life, market women haggling over yam prices, children chasing a deflated football, and young men lounging under the ancient Irako tree, sipping palm wine and trading tales. But amidst the chatter, one name always sparked laughter: Old Man Kelechi. Kelechi, a wiry man in his late 60s, with a face carved by time and a limp that told stories of battles fought with life, was the village's favorite jest. His tattered igbata, patched in more places than it was whole, and his straw hat, which seemed to defy gravity, made him an easy target. "See that one?" Mamangozi, the fish seller, would cackle, pointing at Kelechi as he shuffled past with his hoe. "He thinks he's farming gold on that cursed land." The crowd would erupt, their laughter chasing Kelechi down the dirt path. The cursed land was a sprawling, rocky patch on the outskirts of Umuofia, a place the villagers swore was kissed by bad spirits. Nothing grew there, not yam, not cassava, not even stubborn weeds. Yet every morning, Kelechi could be seen toiling under the blistering sun, digging, planting, and praying over that barren soil. "He's mad-o. Chinidu," the village barber would say, shaking his head. "Why waste your life on a land that even the gods have abandoned?" But Kelechi wasn't always the village laughingstock. Decades ago, he was a man of promise, a young teacher with a sharp mind and a heart full of dreams. He had married Neka, the most beautiful girl in Umuofia, and their love was the kind that inspired songs. They had a son, Obinna, who was their pride. But tragedy struck like a thief in the night. Neka fell ill during a cholera outbreak and passed before the village healer could chant his strongest incantations. Obinna, heartbroken, left Umuofia for Lagos, chasing city dreams and leaving Kelechi alone. The village watched as Kelechi's spirit crumbled, his once bright eyes dimming with grief. That's when he bought the cursed land, a decision that sealed his fate as the village fool. "Why do you waste your time, old man?" Chief Okonkwo, the wealthiest man in Umuofia, had once asked, his voice dripping with mockery. Okonkwo, with his 3 wives, a fleet of cars, and a mansion that dwarfed every hut in the village, owned most of the fertile lands. He had offered to buy Kelechi's plot for a pittance, but Kelechi refused. "This land," Kelechi had said, his voice steady, "is my legacy." The villagers roared with laughter, and Okonkwo spat on the ground. "Legacy of madness," he declared. Yet Kelechi never wavered. Every dawn, he prayed to his ancestors, asking for their blessings on the land. He mixed ash with the soil, whispered to it as if it could hear, and planted seeds that never sprouted. The children would sneak to the edge of his plot, giggling as they threw stones, daring each other to get closer to the madman's farm. Kelechi never chased them away. He'd smile, his eyes crinkling, and say, "One day you'll see." The whispers of his madness grew louder when a stranger arrived in Umuofia. His name was Mr. Adebayo, a sleek city man in a tailored suit, driving a shiny black SUV. He claimed to be a land surveyor, sent by a company in Abuja. The villagers, always hungry for news, gathered as he spoke with Chief Okonkwo. "Your lands are valuable," Adebayo said, his voice smooth as palm oil. "There's talk of a new road cutting through Umuofia, connecting Lagos to the north. Sell now, and you'll be rich beyond your dreams." Okonkwo's eyes gleamed with greed, but when Adebayo mentioned Kelechi's land, the chief laughed. "That useless patch, even the spirits don't want it." Adebayo visited Kelechi that evening. The old man sat on a wooden stool outside his mud hut, staring at the stars. "Your land is in the path of progress," Adebayo said, offering a sum that made Kelechi's eyes widen. But Kelechi shook his head. "This land is not for sale," he said. It holds my heart. Adebayo left, frustrated, and the village buzzed with fresh gossip. He's truly lost it. Mama Ngozi declared, who rejects money for nothing? As months passed, the talk of the new road grew. Okonkwo sold vast portions of his land to the company, building a second mansion and buying a private jet. The village marveled at his wealth, but Kelechi's refusal to sell only fueled their scorn. He's a fool, they said, clinging to a dream that will bury him. But Kelechi wasn't deaf to the whispers. At night, alone in his hut, he would light a lantern and pull out an old journal, its pages yellowed with age. In it, he wrote of his dreams for the land, not just for himself, but for Umuofia. He believed the soil held more than met the eye, a secret buried deep, waiting to be unearthed. My ancestors guide me, he'd whisper, tracing the words with a trembling finger. This land will speak. One evening, as the village prepared for the annual Yam Festival, a group of young men, led by Chinedu, decided to prank Kelechi. They crept to his land under the cover of darkness, planning to scatter his tools and uproot his feudal crops. But as they dug, one of them, Emeka, struck something hard. What's this? He whispered, brushing away the dirt. It was a strange, smooth stone, glinting under the moonlight. The boys, spooked, fled, but Emeka couldn't shake the feeling that they'd stumbled onto something big. The next morning, Kelechi found the stone. His hands trembled as he held it, his heart racing. He didn't know what it was, but he felt its weight, its promise. He buried it back in the soil, whispering a prayer. The village knew nothing of this, but the winds of change were stirring, and Kelechi's land was about to rewrite Umuofia's story. The Yam Festival was Umuofia's pride, a time when the village came alive with music, dance, and the aroma of roasted yams and egusi stew. Masquerades twirled through the square, their colorful costumes dazzling under the sun, while drummers pounded rhythms that shook the earth. But this year, the festival carried a new energy, a whisper of wealth. The talk of the new road had spread like wildfire, and every villager dreamed of the riches it would bring. Chief Okonkwo, now dubbed Okonkwo the Magnificent, strutted through the festival, his agbada shimmering with gold threads, his wives adorned in coral beads. Umuofia will be a city, he boasted, raising a glass of palm wine. The crowd cheered, but their eyes darted to Kelechi, who stood quietly at the edge, his straw hat tilted low. Old man, why don't you sell that land and join the good life? Shouted Namdi, a brash young man who worked for Okonkwo. The crowd laughed, but Kelechi only smiled, his gaze fixed on the horizon. The land will speak when it's ready, he said, his voice calm but firm. The laughter grew louder, but few, like Amaka, a young schoolteacher, noticed something in Kelechi's eyes, a spark of certainty that unsettled her. Amaka had always been curious about Kelechi. As a child, she'd been a student, captivated by his stories of history and the gods. She remembered his passion, his belief in the impossible. Now, watching him stand against the village's scorn, she wondered if there was more to his stubbornness. After the festival, she visited his hut, bringing a basket of roasted yam. Papa Kelechi, she said, using the respectful title, why do you hold onto that land? The village thinks you're mad. Kelechi chuckled, his eyes crinkling. Amaka, my child, madness is what they call a dream they cannot see. This land is more than dirt. It's a promise. He showed her his journal, its pages filled with sketches of the land, notes about the soil, and prayers to his ancestors. Amaka's curiosity deepened. But what makes you so sure? She asked. Kelechi only smiled. The earth speaks to those who listen. Meanwhile, Emeka, the young man who'd found the strange stone, couldn't forget it. He told no one, not even his friends, but the memory gnawed at him. One night, unable to sleep, he returned to Kelechi's land, armed with a flashlight and a shovel. He dug where he'd found the stone, his heart pounding. This time, he uncovered more, several stones, smooth and heavy, unlike anything he'd seen. He pocketed one and fled, his mind racing. Was this what Kelechi was hiding? Emeka took the stone to a friend in Onitsha, a trader who dealt in minerals. The trader's eyes widened when he saw it. "This is no ordinary stone," he said, turning it over. "It looks like raw bauxite. If there's more, it could be worth a fortune." Emeka's heart leapt, but fear gripped him. Should he tell Kelechi? Or keep the secret and claim the land's wealth for himself? Back in Umuofia, Mr. Adebayo returned, this time with a team of men in hard hats and fancy equipment. They set up camp near Kelechi's land, drilling and testing the soil. The villagers watched, whispering about oil or gold. Chief Okonkwo, sensing an opportunity, invited Adebayo to his mansion, offering to sell more of his land. But Adebayo's interest lay elsewhere. "The real value," he told Okonkwo, "is in Kelechi's plot. Our tests show something extraordinary beneath it." Okonkwo laughed, but his eyes narrowed. "That old fool. His land is worthless." Adebayo shook his head. "Not anymore. We've found traces of rare minerals. If he won't sell, we'll find a way." Okonkwo's greed flared. He began plotting to force Kelechi off the land, spreading rumors that Kelechi was hoarding wealth that belonged to the village. "He's cheating us all," Okonkwo declared at a town meeting, his voice booming. The villagers, swayed by his influence, began to turn on Kelechi, their mockery giving way to anger. Kelechi sensed the shift. Strangers lingered near his land, watching him. Tools went missing, and once, he found his crops trampled. But he refused to bend. He began sleeping on the land, a machete by his side, his faith unshaken. Amaka, worried, visited often, bringing food and urging him to be careful. "The village is changing, Papa," she warned. "They're not laughing anymore. They're hungry for what you have." One night, Emeka, torn by guilt and greed, confronted Kelechi. "I know about the stones," he blurted, showing Kelechi the bauxite. Kelechi's face remained calm, but his eyes gleamed. "You've seen the land's secret," he said, "but it's not for you or me alone. It's for Umuofia." Emeka, stunned by Kelechi's lack of anger, confessed his plan to steal the stones. Kelechi placed a hand on his shoulder. "Help me protect this land, and you'll share in its blessings." Emeka, moved by Kelechi's forgiveness, agreed. Together, they began guarding the land, but the village's anger grew. Okonkwo, fueled by Adebayo's promises, rallied the youths, accusing Kelechi of witchcraft. "He's hiding wealth from us." Okonkwo roared. The stage was set for a showdown, and Kelechi's land was no longer just a joke. It was a battleground. The air in Umuofia grew heavy with tension. The once light-hearted mockery of Kelechi had turned into a storm of envy and suspicion. Chief Okonkwo, sensing the village's unrest, fanned the flames. At every gathering, he spoke of Kelechi's land as a betrayal, a treasure hoarded by a selfish old man. "Why should one man hold what could make us all rich?" he thundered, his words sinking into the hearts of the greedy and the desperate. The villagers, swayed by promises of wealth, began to see Kelechi not as a fool, but as an enemy. Kelechi felt the shift like a cold wind. Strangers now openly trespassed on his land, claiming to inspect it for the village. One evening, a group of youths, led by Namdi, confronted him. "Old man, this land belongs to Umuofia." Namdi shouted, brandishing a stick. Kelechi stood firm, his machete glinting in the moonlight. "This land is mine," he said, his voice steady, "and I will protect it with my life." The youths backed off, but the threat lingered. Amaka, now Kelechi's fiercest ally, rallied a few villagers who still respected the old man. She spoke of his kindness, his years of teaching, his unwavering faith. "Papa Kelechi is not our enemy," she pleaded at a village meeting. "He's one of us. Why do we let greed divide us?" But her words were drowned by Okonkwo's influence. The chief had promised jobs and riches from the new road, and the villagers were hungry for change. Emeka, now loyal to Kelechi, shared the secret of the bauxite with Amaka. Her eyes widened. "This could change everything," she said, "but we need proof, and we need to protect Papa Kelechi." They devised a plan to contact Kelechi's son, Obinna, in Lagos. Amaka found his number in Kelechi's journal and called, begging him to return. Your father needs you, she said. Obinna, now a successful engineer, was hesitant. He hadn't seen Umuofia in years, and the pain of his mother's death still lingered. But Amaka's urgency stirred something in him. I'm coming, he promised. Meanwhile, Adebayo and his team intensified their efforts. They offered Kelechi a new deal, 10 times their original offer. Kelechi refused again, his voice unwavering. This land is not just mine, he said. It's for my son, for Umuofia, for the future. Adebayo, frustrated, turned to Okonkwo. Get him off that land, he said, slipping the chief a briefcase of cash. Okonkwo grinned, his plan already in motion. One night, a fire broke out on Kelechi's land. The flames devoured his small crops, and the villagers watched from a distance, some cheering, others silent with guilt. Kelechi and Emeka fought the blaze with buckets of water, saving what they could. Amaka arrived, tears in her eyes. This is Okonkwo's doing, she said. Kelechi nodded, his face grim. The land will still speak, he said, clutching his journal. Obinna arrived the next day, driving a sleek car that turned heads in Umuofia. The villagers whispered as he stepped out, tall and polished, a stark contrast to his father's withered frame. He embraced Kelechi, tears in his eyes. Papa, why didn't you tell me? He asked, seeing the burnt land. Kelechi smiled. You're here now. That's what matters. Obinna, with his engineering expertise, examined the bauxite stones Emeka had collected. This is high grade, he said, his voice trembling with excitement. Papa, your land is sitting on a fortune. He contacted a friend in Abuja, a geologist, who confirmed the find. The land wasn't just valuable, it was a game-changer for Umuofia. But the news spread, and Okonkwo's greed reached a boiling point. Okonkwo rallied the village, claiming Kelechi was conspiring with city people to cheat them. He hired thugs to intimidate Kelechi, and one night they attacked. Emeka and Obinna fought back, protecting Kelechi, but the old man was injured, his arm bruised. Amaka, furious, confronted Okonkwo at his mansion. You're tearing this village apart, she shouted. Okonkwo laughed. The land will be mine, girl. Step aside. But Kelechi had one last card to play. In his journal, he documented every detail of the land, including a map from his grandfather, a village elder, showing the land's true boundaries. It proved the land was legally his, untouchable by Okonkwo's schemes. Obinna took the journal to a lawyer in Onitsha, who filed a case to protect Kelechi's rights. The village buzzed with the news, and some began to question Okonkwo's motives. As the court date approached, Kelechi stood on his land, his eyes fixed on the horizon. The ancestors kept their promise, he whispered. The battle wasn't over, but the tide was turning, and Umuofia was about to learn the true value of the old man they mocked. The courtroom in Onitsha was packed, the air thick with anticipation. Villagers from Umuofia filled the benches, their whispers buzzing like bees. Kelechi sat calmly, his journal in hand, while Obinna and Amaka flanked him, their faces set with determination. Chief Okonkwo, dressed in a flamboyant Igbada, strutted in with his lawyer, confident that his wealth and influence would win the day. But the land, as Kelechi had always said, was ready to speak. The lawyer presented Kelechi's case, showing the map and title deeds from his grandfather. The documents were ironclad, proving Kelechi's ownership beyond doubt. The geologist's report confirmed the bauxite deposits, estimating their value in billions of naira. The judge, a stern woman with no patience for Okonkwo's theatrics, ruled in Kelechi's favor. The land was his, untouchable by the company or Okonkwo's schemes. The village erupted when the news reached Umuofia. Some cheered for Kelechi, their guilt turning to pride, while others, loyal to Okonkwo, grumbled. But Kelechi had no time for gloating. He called a village meeting, standing tall despite his limp. This land is not just mine, he said, his voice carrying over the crowd. It's ours. I will build a factory here, not for me, but for Umuofia. Jobs, schools, hospital, all from this land. The villagers were stunned. Okonkwo, humiliated, tried to rally support, but his influence waned as Kelechi's vision spread. Obinna partnered with investors in Lagos, and within months, construction began. The cursed land transformed into a bustling site, with workers from Umuofia employed in droves. Amaka became the manager of a new community school, funded by the land's wealth. Emeka, once a thief, trained as a foreman, his loyalty to Kelechi unwavering. Okonkwo, unable to bear his fall, left Umuofia, his mansions empty, his pride shattered. The village, once divided by greed, united under Kelechi's dream. The old man, now called Papa Wealth, walked his land with a smile, his straw hat still tilted low. At night, he sat with Obinna and Amaka, sharing stories of Neka and the ancestors who guided him. The land spoke, he said, and we listened. Years later, Umuofia was unrecognizable, a thriving town with paved roads, a hospital, and a factory that exported bauxite across Nigeria. Kelechi's name was carved on a statue in the village square, a tribute to the man who turned scorn into triumph. The children who once threw stones now played on playgrounds built from his legacy, and the villagers who mocked him told his story with pride. And so, the old man they mocked became the hero they celebrated. From a barren patch to a land of wealth, Kelechi's faith rewrote Umuofia's destiny. Subscribe for more stories of triumph, and share this tale of the man who proved that even the dust under our feet can hold a fortune.